¿Cómo andan amigos, amigas? Bienvenidos a un nuevo video. Si sos amante de los videojuegos o la tecnología y naciste en algún año entre los 80 y los 2000, seguramente los videojuegos forman parte de tu vida. Quizá creciste frente a una consola o un arcade o jugando con tu computadora, pero alguna vez te pusiste a pensar cómo empezó todo. Porque sí, hubo una vida en la que no había videojuegos. Entonces, ¿quiénes fueron las mentes que hicieron posible que hoy disfrutemos de este universo digital? Si me preguntas a mí, entender el comienzo, el dónde arrancó todo, es algo fascinante. Creo que es un viaje por la historia de la creatividad, la innovación y por supuesto la tecnología. Pero ¿qué tal si pudiéramos escuchar esa historia contada directamente por uno de los protagonistas? Por eso en este video, y aunque sinceramente todavía no me lo creo, vamos a hablar con Nolan Bushnell. Para quienes no lo conocen, Nolan Bushnell es considerado por muchos el padre de los videojuegos. Y debo reconocer que puede ser un tema controversial porque hay gente que no lo ve de esa manera. Pero en los hechos y los papeles, amigos, en la línea histórica de la humanidad, el señor Bushnell tiene ganada su entrada. Cofundador de Atari en el año 1972, nos trajo joyas como Pong y déjame decirte que puso el asfalto, el pavimento en el camino para toda la industria de los videojuegos. Pero antes de Atari, Nolan ya había hecho historia, ya que fue el creador de Computer Space. Si no sabes lo que es esto, estamos hablando del primer videojuego arcade comercial de la historia. Exacto, te estoy hablando de antes de Donkey Kong, antes de Mario, antes de que los nipones aparezcan con las máquinas de videojuegos con monedas. Nolan Bushnell fue el primero. Y sí, fue el que dio el puntapié para jugar videojuegos en un bar, en restaurantes y básicamente que el arcade se convirtiera en un fenómeno cultural. En este video y entrevista no nos vamos a enfocar en detalles técnicos, ni licencias, ni disputas empresariales. Para eso ya existen documentales excelentes que puedes encontrar en YouTube. Este video tampoco es la historia de Atari. Creo que esto es algo más especial. Es un recorrido por los hitos más importantes en la vida de Nolan Bushnell. Por supuesto vamos a hablar un poco de Atari. Y todo esto contado por él mismo. Vamos a explorar cómo llegó a interesarse por los videojuegos, cómo fue crear Computer Space y Pong, y básicamente lo que significó ser un pionero en una industria que me animaría a decir no existía. Y acá déjenme aclarar, estoy hablando del concepto de videojuego comercial, porque por supuesto existían consolas mecánicas o con electrónica que ya estaban en algunas salas de entretenimiento. Acá estamos hablando de videojuegos. Y bueno, la verdad que una charla súper interesante. Nolan nos va a contar cómo vivió su paso por la industria de los videojuegos. Y si me preguntas a mí, lo más importante es cómo él reflexiona sobre su legado. Nos va a dar algunos consejos sobre arriesgarse, sobre la creatividad, la innovación y cómo todo esto es importante para crear algo nuevo. Así que si sos apasionado de los videojuegos o si simplemente te inspira la historia de cómo una idea puede cambiar el mundo, este video es para vos. Me pone feliz el poder lograrlo y ojalá ustedes puedan disfrutarlo, que saquen algo lindo, aunque sea un buen rato. Es una entrevista larga, ya verán, pero bueno, estamos hablando con el tipo que la vio y lo hizo. Tengan en cuenta, mi inglés no es el mejor, es otro factor por el cual la primera parte de la entrevista se me puede ver nervioso, medio robótico. Creo que los primeros 20 minutos o 30 tal vez estoy como duro. Así que bueno amigos, no los aburro más, el tema está planteado. Si quieren escuchar de primera mano cómo fue la transición de un mundo sin videojuegos a un mundo con videojuegos, acompáñenme. Okay, and here we are. Mr. Nolan Bushnell, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure to be here. Always fun.
You're a part of the history, and having the chance to talk with you, it's just an honor, once in a life. So thank you again.
Well, thank you.
Okay, people is bored about hearing me, so let's start hearing you.
Well, I'm Nolan Bushnell, and I'm a electrical engineer by training. And I've always been interested in entrepreneurship and doing new things. And I like to invent. And so that's been kind of my driving passion. And, you know, the thing about life is that you start out stupid and then you get a little bit smarter. And so the whole idea is every day you just get a little bit smarter than you were before, but you still screw up as much as you do great things. But the great part of life is that people forget your screw ups and, they remember your successes. So it's a win-win situation.
That's very deep. That is very deep. Yes. Because a lot of people, it's including myself, right? I'm scared about failing. And due to that, sometimes we just don't try new things because we're scared about failing. We're scared about not achieving what we're expecting, right? So that is pretty deep.
Well, no, what you need to do is think about life as a game. And when you lose at chess, is that a bad thing? No, you learn from that. And you set the pieces up and you play again, remembering the mistakes you made, and you get better. And so life's that way. When you make a failure, you say, I know how I screwed that up. Now I'm going to do it again, and I'm going to do it better.
Life is like a game. Very good message. Deep message again. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, okay. I would like to start getting some context here. So there was a time when video games didn't exist, when video games weren't even a thing.
Correct.
And you've been there. I born with video games, right? So I would like to begin by asking, how did your journey start? And was there any particular, day, moment, or activity that first sparked your interest in the video game? I don't know if say industry or video games in general.
I actually view my life of happy accidents. And for example, I put myself through college working in an amusement park. And I did that for all the reasons that were wrong, really, in some ways. I was doing very well financially, but I got the job at the amusement park because it was nights and I wanted to keep myself from spending money. And so I got the job at the amusement park to keep myself out of harm's way. Happy accident. And then I graduated and moved to Silicon Valley and worked for a company that was a pioneer in video technology. Another happy accident because I took the job because they offered me the most money, not because I was trying to get into the video business. But I learned so much about the video business. And another happy accident is I went to the University of Utah that just happened to have Dr. Evans, who was focused on connecting video screens up to computers. In 1966, if you were to see a video screen connected to a computer, there were 3 places in the world. One was MIT, was Stanford Labs, and the third one was the University of Utah. Happy accident, which didn't belong. And so I saw a game programmed by some MIT students called Space War, and I saw it at the University of Utah and later at Stanford. And I knew, because of my work at the amusement park where I had some arcades, so I understood the economics of the coin-operated game business. And I knew that if I put a coin slot next to this monitor, that it'd make money. I mean, I just knew it. And, but you take 25 cents for 3 minutes of play and $1 million computer, and the math doesn't work.
Right.
So file it away. And I thought, well, maybe someday computers can be cheaper.
And going back, we were talking about, what year was that?
1969.
69. You got contact with this video game that wasn't commercial, and you got this idea to basically.
Yeah, I started out with a game that was an attempt to do space war, and I licensed it to Nutting, and it became Computer Space, and that was actually the first one. But it was too complex for the guy with a beer in the bar, and so it gave me just enough money to kind of go on my own. The idea was that we were going to be a studio that designed games and licensed them to manufacturers, because we had no money and we had no factory. And so we started, and then by happenstance, we did Pong, which I didn't think was going to be commercial, but it turned out to be massively commercial. But it was a 2-player game, and nobody wanted to license it. So I said, we might as well build it. And that puts me into the video game manufacturing business. And we made every mistake the world could ever figure out. But in time, we developed processes and, buying department and shipping and receiving and quality control. And in literally a year, we had a factory and we had cash flow, and another happy accident.
Happy accident. I like that. So stepping back for a second, we were, and correct me if I'm missing something, but we were on 1971 when you first released Computer Space, right?
Correct.
That, by the way, I saw Computer Space in person at the video game museum in Dallas, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. And I saw it just a few days back. Okay, so release of Computer Space in the 71. Would you consider the release as a successful project?
Yes, kinda. It was. I think we sold about $2.5 million worth, which in the coin-op business, that's a mediocre game. Till you can get to, 10 million in sales, that's considered to be a good game. 2.5 million was it was successful, but not. It was definitely not a home run.
And that was over a period of what? A year?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mark.
And I want to correct you a little bit. The game was actually debuted in the fall of 1971. We didn't really get into full-scale manufacturing until December of 1971 or 1970. But the main thrust of the game was in 1971.
Okay.
But it started earlier.
So then my follow-up question, I believe I already know the answer, but I have to ask. If the project was kind of a success, why did you push things harder with Pong in the 72?
Well, the Pong game earned so much more money, and it was kind of the everyman's game. That is, it was a game that you could play with a beer in one hand, and it was also very, very popular with women, and so there was kind of a social component there in which women could beat a guy. The average woman could beat the average guy, which was very empowering at that time. because women have better small muscle coordination than men do. You know, men have large muscle coordination. But, you know, for example, all the small work in computers or knitting or what have you, that's all women, because they have better motor skills with small muscles.
Yeah. I never thought about that. So you did all this analysis and you figured, I'm assuming you figured, or you realized it was going to be a success, meaning Pong, before releasing it. So I'm understanding that you decided to invest on, and I'm not talking about money, investing on this project because you knew it was going to blow up, right?
Not until we tested it on location.
Okay.
And that's where the story of the cash box filling up it's a true story. And that was so much more money than any coin-operated game had ever made before, ever, that I said, whoa, this is going to be a great game, even though it was just but simple. And so it was just a natural that coin-operated games sell based on how much they earn.
Can we hear the story? I know the story, but maybe someone watching at this video isn't aware, and I think it's amazing. Can we hear it from you?
We put the game. We built two of them. One of them was sort of portable, and the other one we put in a cabinet and put it in a bar. And 3 days later, it stopped working. And when we went to check and find out what was broken, the only thing we found is that the coin box had filled up so much that it would take no more quarters. And that's the kind of failure you like.
Wow. That is an amazing story. And that makes me think, and I was always like thinking on the human side, the feelings, the expectations, because you got this box with a video game, probably a lot of questions. Okay, what's gonna happen? Well, how people will react? Of course, you want it to be successful and large, big, impactful. Sorry, but I think we're talking about uncertainty, right? Okay, what's gonna happen? So you got the call from the bar saying, "Hey, isn't working anymore, but it's broken or whatever."
Yeah.
You found it full of coins.
Correct.
What was the reaction? What did you feel?
I said, wow, we've got a monster here. I was actually, personally, I was in Chicago at the time trying to license Pong to Bowie, which was a big coin-op manufacturer at the time. And they didn't want it because they thought it was a two-player game. And I got the phone call. Actually, I called in. This was before cell phones. I called in and they told me the story. And on the airplane flying back, I did a calculation of how many we could build. Because if Bowie wasn't going to buy it, I said, with these kind of earnings, we can make money back just by putting them on location. So there was kind of no risk. And I felt that we had just enough money that we could build 13 of them. But I thought that was an unlucky number, so we decided to build 12.
Wow.
So sold them for cash.
Uh-huh.
Sold them for cash. And then we built 30. Sold them for cash, and then we built 80. And then we sold them for cash and did 140. You know, and just kept doing that.
Wow. No, it's amazing. And to keep the timeline, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys founded Atari. Let me mention, of course, Ted Dabney here. You founded Atari in June of the '72, right? But Pong was.
That's when we that's when we incorporated. But we considered that we had a company during our licensing. You know, Ted and I did the licensing to Nutting the year and a half before.
Okay.
And so, but we decided we needed to incorporate just to be more like a real company.
Right.
Because it was, before that, it was a partnership. And we had already produced probably 50 or 60 units before we incorporated.
Wow. And the story of the bar, the let's call it the sandbox testing.
Right.
Was it before or after formally founding Atari?
It was after forming Syzygy, which turned into Atari when we incorporated.
Okay. So how did you feel? And for example, myself, I collect video game consoles, right? I think I have probably like 13 or no, actually 14 different versions of Pong.
We were heavily copied because the game was so simple that anybody with a garage shop could make them. And so the demand outstripped our ability to supply. And so there was a lot of knockoffs. And what we found is that everybody had a better factory. They had more money than we did. And so what we decided is that we only had one capability that was definitive, and that is we could build new games. We understood the technology, because it's very different to invent versus to copy.
Right.
And so we basically out-invented everybody, and 2 years later, we had an 80% market share. They couldn't copy us as fast as we could innovate.
Right, right. And how did you feel about other companies or people cloning your product?
Pissed me off.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
But, you know, in those days, it took 4 years to get a patent. And that's, you know, the market was over by then almost, you know, because in the coin-op business, you can build a product for about a year, and then the next one is wanted.
Right. Right. So looking back, by the time you created Atari on the 72, did you already know you were shaping the video game industry?
Didn't have time to think about it. We were just assholes and elbows trying to figure out what to do and making every mistake you could possibly make, because I'd never really run a factory before, never hired, you know, and all of a sudden I had 150 employees, you know, and, you know, vice presidents, some of them good, some of them bad, and a whole marketing program, and, you know, just making it up as you go along. And when things weren't working, you'd fire somebody and try to hire somebody better. And it was just constant chaos. And we never had enough money because we were always growing faster. A lot of people don't realize that when companies grow, they consume capital. That's why venture capital exists. And for the first 3 years, we didn't have any venture capital. We were finally able to get some, which helped a lot. But the venture capital really didn't come until we entered the consumer market, because nobody thought that the coin-op business was sustainable.
It's I'm hearing you, Mr. Bushnell, and it's hard to. I mean, not hard, but it's crazy. It's crazy to be hearing these stories and thinking that because again, as I said at the beginning, right? I born with video games. Video games today are, I mean, cell phone, VR, I don't know, everywhere, right? It's a common thing. My 6-year-old daughter, she started playing video games at I think at 3. She started with Pac-Man.
Yeah.
In 72 hours, she was beating the first 2 levels.
Yeah.
So 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 it's very interesting to hear the transition, right? A life or a world without video games, the transition to the world with video games, right? So that led me to the next question. Was there any moment or something when you basically first realized that Atari was becoming something bigger than what you would imagine? Or you were just, I don't know.
Well, it was very interesting. There was a time when I drove into work and I couldn't find a parking space in our parking lot.
So you didn't have a parking reserved for you? Okay.
Well, I didn't believe that. I thought that if you had a parking spot next to the front door, that everybody that came to work before you thought that the boss was being lazy because he wasn't there yet.
Smart.
And I just thought that's not a good construct. One of the things I'm actually the most proud of is I think that we created the ethos for Silicon Valley. And that ethos was meritocracy, merit, merit, merit. And so it kind of started out with the idea that we had to dress down, when I started, engineers wore a coat and tie because we were professionals, and we had a dress down Friday where you could kind of come in jeans and t-shirts and what have you. And people liked that. And I thought, why don't we just say, doesn't matter. And so we got rid of time clocks. We got rid of, dress codes. And we basically said, everybody is an adult and you are going to be judged on your output alone, not on your gender, not on your race, not on your dress code, but come to work when you want to. Some people are better in the afternoon. Some people are better in the morning. We don't care, nor should we. And so you can look like and get your job done. We don't care. And so we developed this idea of work hard, play hard. And this meritocracy and this focus on outcomes became the standard of Silicon Valley. Because, at one point between Apple and Atari, we probably employed a third of Silicon Valley. And that ethos became the center of gravity, which continues on today.
Wow. So, talking about today, it's been, I hope I'm not messing this up, 53 anniversary for Atari, right?
Correct.
What made Atari this big and, I like this word, eternal?
I think it had a really good logo.
Oh, for sure. Check this out. It's awesome.
It's a very good logo. And,
is it the Mount Fuji? No.
Well, that's what they call it, the Fuji logo. And if you look at Japanese characters, it's very close to that.
Nice. Can you take us back to a specific moment I don't know, maybe a late night with in the workshop or in a garage or hanging out with your friends, whatever. When you really felt the weight of creating something entirely new, shaping the industry. I know we were talking about this, right? But there was like, I don't know, eating pizza, drinking beers with your friends, like man, we did it. We're making it. Something like that happened.
Actually, not. I think that we were always so focused on the next game and the next project that we didn't have time to sort of sit on our laurels and pat ourselves on the back. At least I didn't. I always felt, if anything, I felt tired because everything was hard.
Yeah, I got it.
I mean, the number of times that we didn't have enough money in the bank on Wednesday for payroll on Friday. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I was dealing with on a regular basis.
Yeah, I got it, definitely.
But I actually think that it led to me selling the company earlier than I should, because I think I was just tired. I think that if I'd have taken the 2-week vacation, I may have been more willing to stick it out for another couple of years.
Do you regret that decision?
Yes and no. You know, it's really interesting. When I sold the company, I was able to buy the house that I loved and find my current wife and love.
Can you give us a year?
1976. And so in some ways, selling the company allowed me to get my personal life squared away. And could I have made more money? Yeah. Would I have had the time to spend, you know, wooing and wedding my wife? Probably not. You know, the funny thing is I actually made more personal money at Chuck E. Cheese than I did on Atari, which is kind of surprising to a lot of people.
It is for me. It is for me, and I would like to get into that in a second. So, is it okay if we summarize this saying that you have prioritized, or you sold Atari prioritizing your quality life?
Yeah, I think so.
That's a good message. And talking about, I don't know, hard decisions, I guess. What was the hardest personal sacrifice you made during that time?
I think it was to kind of give up some of the control that I had over product direction. It was a little bit unknown. I didn't realize that Warner was going to be as stupid as they were. You know, and they just made mistake over mistake after mistake. And I felt that they really were mean to my baby. I mean, no, not by avarice, but just by inadvertence and foolishness.
I hear you. Yeah, definitely hard, and I love how you defined Atari as your baby. That's powerful. That's powerful. So, when Atari started to explode globally, how? I think I kind of understand based on what you're saying, but I want to be specific. How did it change your day-to-day life? Not just as a business person, as a businessman, sorry, but also as an individual, as a human being, you know?
Well, you know, one of the things that happens, and I want to amplify a little bit one of your previous questions about why is Atari symbolic. And I think that the OG, the original game, the original founding, always has a special place. You know, there's a start, and sometimes there's a finish, and you always remember the start, but the middle stuff kind of isn't that important. I mean, it doesn't stand out because it's in the middle, and there's a lot of them. And so I think that for me, one of the things that happens is all of a sudden people want to give speeches at symposiums and conventions. And so one of the things that happened as Atari got successful is I was on the speaking circuit and on airplanes all the time. And that was a little bit surprising. You know, I was a pretty good public speaker, still am, but you know, it was something that was unanticipated. The second thing is that people want you to tell stories about the early days and what have you, when in fact, my focus has always been on what's my current project and what am I doing now. And, you know, I've always tried to keep both feet in the future as opposed to the past. But everybody kind of wants you to go into the past a little bit.
Yeah.
Like you.
Like me. Yeah. I was going to say that. Yeah. And I'm a big, of course I'm a gamer. I'm a technologist. I'm a passionate about technology, gaming, and with my YouTube channel and the social networks, I usually have the chance to interact with people, right? I see a lot of people, you know, arguing and fighting, taking positions related to the video game war, right? Company, no, this company is better. No, this other company beat them, whatever. I personally admire every single company and every single mind like you. Well, of course you're on the top, right? But because each company, each mind did something to shape the industry.
Exactly.
Whatever we are today, they all did something, small, larger, whatever.
The Xbox is different than the PlayStation, but each has their place.
Yes.
And the Switch, great product, you know. The Wii, really a great product. You know,
yes.
I mean, the Wii did some things that the regular, you know, they attacked because of the simplicity of the controller. It's the only game that I know that ever invaded senior citizens' homes. You know, when you have, you know, XYZ buttons and triggers and what have you, joysticks, you know, that's too much for a lot of people.
Right.
And so I think that, and then the whole, you know, Nintendo DS and the Advance and what have you, you know, these were great products. And now, of course, on the cell phone, you do all kinds of things with one exception. The problem with cell phones is you only have a touch screen, and there are things that just need a joystick. You know, to be technical, you need vectors, not just scalars. And a touchscreen on an iPhone is really a scalar.
Right.
You can get a little bit of vector by pushing, but it's not good.
Right.
Like you can't play a good game of Pong on an iPhone.
Agree. Absolutely agree.
Yeah.
So let's just stay on this topic. I like it. Do you play video games today?
Oh, yeah.
What do you play?
Oh, I'm so embarrassed to say.
No. There's no way you can't be embarrassed, man.
I go from game to game. I've probably got 50 games downloaded on my phone. maybe 100. And I tend to go to puzzle games. And what people don't realize is that you lose about 5 milliseconds of reaction time for every year that you're older than 25. And so I am hopelessly slow. So I am just god awfully bad at a first person shooter. You know, if I'm playing my boys, I'm dead and they've packed up and gone home before I even know I've been shot.
Oh my God.
No, I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but
I know.
But I also play Go still. I play it online, but I play probably 2 or 3 games of Go every day.
Nice. Wow. What a surprise. I love it.
And I play chess against my boys on the cell phones.
I'm not good on chess. I can't talk about that. I'm not good at all.
Well, you know, I played number 2 board for the university when I was in college. And I actually learned Go from the guy who was number 1 board, who was a Korean. And he taught me Go, and I was addicted. I got really, really fascinated with Go. And when I moved to San Francisco, they had a Go club in San Francisco at the old Buddhist church. And I used to go up and play with these guys that were 100 years old, and it's just a ball.
Yeah, and get fun.
Every Sunday morning, I'd go up to the Go club.
Wow. That's a nice story. Thank you. That's a nice story. Let's go back to the early 80s. I would like to know if the video game crash in the 83 affected you personally in any way or not.
I made a lot of money on that because I saw it coming. And I shorted Warner Communication at the time. I was out. I'd quit. But I had enough cash that I could play the stock market pretty aggressively. And I knew that the market was saturated. And I made a bet, and I probably made $750,000 shorting the stock.
Cheers for that.
So that's not the answer a lot of people expect from me.
No, but that's the true, and you're super transparent, which makes me appreciate even more this conversation. Wow. So it affects you in a very positive way. We can summarize saying that. Oh God. Okay. Do you have any story from the old Atari days? I don't know, something funny, something chaotic, that you've never forgotten, something, I don't know, that captures what it was like to be in the middle of a, I don't know, let's call it revolution.
Well, probably the biggest claim I have, which people may think is bullshit, but I don't think so.
Not me at all.
But I think that I think that Atari could have owned the internet. And we had a project that we wanted to play games over the telephone lines. And so we actually had designed the fastest modem that existed at the time, like quadruple the speed. Because in a world of 300 baud modems, we had one that was 2100 baud.
Oh, wow. That's a lot that's a large difference.
Big difference. And our plan was to have closets in every area code, because you could make a free telephone call in those days in your own area code. But if you went to some other area code, there was generally a surcharge. So we were going to have closets in each area code and then link them together with T1 lines, which is a high-speed megahertz data connection. And it turns out that the protocol that we had was very, very close to the internet IP stack. And I think if we'd had that game network, it was a very small step to go to email, and then maybe somewhere along the line there had been a browser. But it would this was, the internet really didn't come full circle until about 91, 90. Mm-hmm. And this was 78. And so it was way before. And I think that it was about the same time as ARPANET and some of those other things. But I think that we could have owned the internet.
And what was stopping you to develop into the internet tech world, let's say?
Because I didn't own Atari anymore, and Warner thought it was a waste of money.
Wow.
So that's kind of a regret, because just not knowing whether, what would have happened. Because I can see a pathway where it would have been great.
Yeah. Wow. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, just starting Atari, what advice would you give? Not about business, but about staying grounded or inspired, or something. Let's just, I don't know, play some. Let's dream a little.
I think my advice would say take risks, but take risks that are not catastrophic. So I think that 5% of your engineering budget should go to crazy and that crazy stuff is often in the eye of the beholder. I did something early on, and in business and game playing is a lot about understanding your brain and the brain of your competitor, and the brain of your people, the people that work with you. And we would do this thing. We'd have a planning session 3 times a year where we'd rent a house at a beach somewhere, and we'd all go and stay there, and we'd have a nice meal and what have you, and then get up in the morning, start out, and we'd plan for the morning what the projects we were going to work on for the next year. Then just before lunch, I'd say, okay, we've spent all this time on projects that we think are important. Now I want to only hear crazy ideas, really batshit crazy ideas. And we'd put a list up of crazy ideas. And I said, sometimes, maybe some of the ideas are not feasible with current technology, or sometimes there are various other things. Then after lunch, I would take that list and say, okay, now your boss has lost his mind. And he says that we have to do something from the crazy list. Which one is it going to be? And so what happens is you get on the crazy list because people have already prejudged it to be difficult or impossible or crazy. When you all of a sudden change the dynamic and say, okay, this is one we have to do. So now your mind says, we have to do this. How? do we do it? And that changes the dynamic of how you judge things. I can tell you that every time I've done that, the most successful product came off of the crazy list because you're manipulating people's brains.
Wow, I love it. I'm pretty sure a lot of people watching this video will appreciate that. Okay, so I was planning to maybe what you just answered is it's going to answer this question, but I was also thinking and asking you for a word of advice or maybe some lesson you want to share with the new generations of creators and dreamers out there.
I think the most important thing that I think people right now need to think about is we are very, very close to a singularity. And we just experienced one with COVID. Like the world really changed from COVID. Like centers of cities right now have vacancy rates that are through the roof because work at home, work on Zoom is a bigger thing. That's kind of a singularity, like the world that existed before COVID and the world after was very difficult. We're coming on to 3 singularities that are going to be very, very important in the next 5 years. There's very little. 1 is AI, 2 is robotics, and 3 is full self-driving. All of those are going to have massive impacts on the way life works. And so probably the most important one is AI. And so if you're a high school or a college student right now, what do you train for? And the answer is, it's not obvious. But generally, when you see a disruptor coming, the most safe strategy is to get as close to the disruptor as you can. And so I tell my kids right now, or anybody that listens to me, is get to know every one of the AI engines intimately and use them daily. And what that will do is will say that whatever change happens, you'll be on top of it. I don't know if that's what you want. But
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. That's such an advice. Yes.
For example, my youngest son, who is a video game programmer, he did Escape Academy, and his new project he thought was going to take a year. Because of AI, he now believes he can get it done in 4 months.
Oh, wow.
He thinks that AI has essentially tripled his productivity.
Wow.
We were talking about it over Sunday dinner the other day. And I think that is really, really important. I mean, have you played with, Mid-Journey or Grok?
Yeah, both.
Yeah, see, these are damn good things. And Mid-Journey is a little bit more brittle than I like, but they'll get that better.
And are you using on your I don't know, daily basis AI tools?
Yes, I am.
Any favorite one?
I think Grok. It's very interesting how you used to, when you had a question, you would go to Google. I don't think I've used Google to answer a question in a year. My actually go-to is Echo, or because sometimes just asking a question, I get 90% of what I want in general. There's another one called Hotpots, which is a pretty good engine for creating images. And so when I'm doing a PowerPoint or something like that, I use Midjourney and Hotpots. Right now, my main project is gamified education, a company called Exodexa, and that's been good. I've been doing a lot in the education space. You know, I don't know if you saw my book, Shaping Future.
Okay, no, I wasn't aware, but I'll get one. Where can we get one?
Just Amazon.
Okay, Amazon.
And this, it's been out about 6 months, been a very good seller. But it's all about, one of the things I have this rule on is when you see something's broken, you can either, you know, bitching about something is not productive. Having an idea and trying to be eloquent and concise in how to fix it is when you don't like something. And my belief right now is that the educational system in the world is broken. And from elementary school to college, it's inefficient and it just is just broken. And I believe it's fixable. And one of the, and education, which most countries spend 5% of GDP in educational resources. That's billions and billions, trillions of dollars. And yet, it's probably the industry that is lagging most in computer technology. The lecture is a very, very inefficient and broken way to teach. So anyway, you got to keep me off my sandbox.
No. I like it. I like it because again, the proposal was to have a very friendly, not structured and flex conversation, and this is what I was expecting, and I really appreciate you being this open.
Well, data. You remember 5% of what you hear, 10% of what you see, 80% of what you do. And if you remembered everything that you saw, your brain would overflow. But doing, that locks it in. That's what tells your brain, remember this. And so gamification of education is the core. And right now we are gamifying high school so that you play a game and various games, and you complete it, and you will have the equivalent of a high school education, which we believe we can deliver with 2 to 3 hours of play in over 6 months.
That's massive.
Massive. And then we're currently doing a fundraising, and we think that once we get high school, we'll take it down to grade school, and then we'll move up into college.
And are you guys far from, I don't know if the implementing is the right word?
Well, on my gravestone, I say, what would you rather have? He invented the video game, or he solved the problems of education? Maybe both.
It's not a hard question. It's a hard answer.
Well, I think that one of our goals in life is to leave the world a little better place. And I think you do that in several ways. You do it by your acts. And I think you do it with your family. You know, like I have 8 kids. Some people think that's excessive, but they're all going to make the world a better place because they're all really capable, wonderful adults.
Beautiful. Do they? Well, probably that's a question for them, right? But I'm just thinking on how do they? I don't know. What do they feel, or when saying, "Oh yeah, no, my father is Nolan Bushnell." No, who is Nolan Bushnell? Oh yeah, he created the video games or the arcades. He put the arcades in the world. I would pay to see people reaction. What do you mean arcades in the world? Yeah, he did the very first one.
Well, I think that the relationship between fathers and sons is always complex.
Ah.
And I think that they would like to, when it's convenient for them, claim me. When it's not, they can throw me under the bus. And that's actually okay too. But when they decided what they needed to do to make money, they all did something in the game side of the world or the art side of the world, because they realized that they knew more from just conversations around the dinner table than their peers. And so when you know more, you can probably monetize it better. And I think growing up with me, they always knew that entrepreneurship was the right path for them. So they're all sort of on their own, doing their own thing.
Very last two questions. So back in the Atari golden years, what was your very favorite game?
Went through phases, but I think that early on, I really, really liked Tempest. I really liked Asteroids. I loved Centipede and Breakout. Those were kind of my coin-op go-tos.
And I can be wrong, but I think I read somewhere that Breakout, the video game, you designed the concept. Was your idea or not?
That's correct. And I assigned it to Steve Jobs, actually.
To Steve Jobs.
Yeah. And he and Woz knocked it out and programmed it, or built a circuit board. It was prior to the von Neumann. And it was very successful.
Wow. Yeah, I would say these are not games that I daily play, but I'm still playing all these games.
Yeah.
Actually, and I think the last time I played Breakout was 2 weeks back.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm still missing 15 games to complete my Atari video game collection.
Wow.
So I'm pretty close to, yeah. I don't have everything in box, but I have the games. I'm cool with that.
Okay, do you want me to make you cry? I had a box of EPROMs of video game cartridges that were never released.
No.
And I gave them away.
You give them away?
Well, I just gave them to a friend. And I realize now that they were gold. Never released. They weren't packaged. They weren't named. They were named on a little label but these were EPROMs, programmable.
And is your friend a collector? Someone who really appreciate what he has? And I'm not talking about the value. I don't care if it's $1 or 100,000. I'm talking about what it represents.
I don't remember.
Okay, let's keep it there.
Yeah, I mean,
because you are going to make me cry now.
Exactly. I cry about it when I think about it. Well, the other thing I cry about is I was offered a third of Apple computer for $50,000.
That went straight to my heart.
Yeah.
Last question, and I'll release you. After everything you've seen and done, what's one thing you hope people will remember about your role in shaping the video game industry?
Well, I think the more important thing was actually shaping the philosophy of business in Silicon Valley. I think that was more important in reality. In terms of the video game business, somebody has to be the first, and I'm proud of that. But I think that there are so many things that I didn't see clearly. Like I never really understood how quickly handhelds can come along. That was a surprise to me. But Other than that, I knew we were going to get to photorealism. I saw VR coming and played some of the early stuff, but I'm pretty happy with the outcomes. But again, focusing on what I'm psyched on now is let's fix education.
Is there anything else you would like to, I don't know, talk about, mention? Because again, I want to be very respectful, and I hope Nancy will not get mad at me because I said 45 minutes and it's an hour and 10 minutes.
Well, here's one of the things that I would like to leave everybody with is that there's going to be a massive amount of noise created by unemployment. And, you know, full self-driving cars at full scale will eliminate about 15 million jobs in the United States. It's a lot of jobs, all the way from, you know, taxi drivers to truck drivers to, you know, insurance adjusters. You know, like full self-driving is going to drop the cost of insurance to maybe a third, maybe 20%. I think you're going to find that many young people will choose to not own a car because ride sharing will become so prevalent and so cheap. But unemployment really comes about when you have a failure of imagination, because when you have a lot of people that are able to work, you can build the future. And like, I really love the whole idea of Hyperloop. I want to be able to get on a Hyperloop train and go from San Francisco or from Los Angeles to New York in 20 minutes. I think that's cool.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
And I think that robo-taxis and things like that will make DoorDash and things like that cheaper and easier. So from the time you type in your pizza, you'll have it in half an hour. That's cool. You know, I also like the idea of garden cities, where when you don't have to look out the window of your car, it's very easy to take the street, dig down 2 meters, maybe berm it over, and instead of having a street that's paved and with parked cars and everything, just becomes a park. And you just go downstairs and you pick up a car and it goes, and no pain, no, you know, don't have to worry about snow plows in the winter thing. And I think that kind of life is better. Let's just build it.
That's a good message. Thank you so much, Mr. Bushnell. Okay, before wrapping up, let me thank you one more time. As I said at the very beginning, there are opportunities that are once in a life, and I feel that this is one of these opportunities. Okay, Mr. Bushnell, thank you again. Thank you, Nancy. If you are watching this video, hopefully you are. Thank you, and sorry because I said 45 minutes. It's an hour, 20 minutes. But it was excellent. ¿Qué puedo decirles? La entrevista la terminé hace aproximadamente 1 hora y media. Me tomé un rato para tomar unos mates, relajarme. Sinceramente terminé emocionado. Emocionado por la charla, por tener la oportunidad de hablar con un personaje histórico. Estos son los momentos en los que el cajón retro me llena de emoción, de alegría. Hay cosas que van más allá, que trascienden las vistas de un video. Y esto es uno de esos momentos. Como dije en la introducción, Nolan Bushnell tiene ganado su lugar en la línea de la historia de la humanidad. Porque es así. Y ¿saben qué? Con algún error en mi inglés, más trabado, más nervioso, más o menos duro, tuve la oportunidad de tener esa charla, ese 1 a 1, que va a quedar conmigo para la eternidad, al igual que este video que ustedes están viendo. Y eso ya significa muchísimo. Así que bueno, amigos, eso ha sido todo. Ustedes me contarán si les gustó el contenido. Si quieren ver más contenido similar a este, les digo, tengo una agenda preparada. No voy a dar spoilers, pero se vienen más cosas. Como siempre digo al final de los videos, si este contenido les gustó, déjenme un like, suscríbanse, compartan mi contenido y nos vemos la próxima.